Burger King.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And, well, I hope everybody's doing well in the midst of the constant clusterfuck that is this current stage of capitalism. And, well, I want to just give a quick, utterly shameless plug of some stuff from my other channel that I just did you might find interesting. So I know some of you are interested in languages and interested in learning them, and I just did a little brief talk on my language-related stream earlier today on why you shouldn't feel intimidated by materials that are supposedly too advanced for you if you're actually interested in them. Using the example of how I'm using Marx to learn Georgian. So there's that video. Definitely worth checking out if I do say so myself. How's everybody doing, chat, as I wait for my tea to actually reach drinkable temperature? Okay, so, hello River Rune. Yeah, I saw that I see you saw that there are some new jelly beans up. I actually got to see those, I watched the, live stream of them. But, yeah, that was really good. I mean, it is just hard not to notice the juxtaposition of Israeli TikTok being full of just scumbag shit. No sign of actually, no demonstration that they actually know anything about, like, fighting. Just, like, showing that they are the worst people. Which is wonderful for, I mean, for me, being Jewish, it's wonderful that they do this while wrapping themselves in the Star of David while they tell everybody what horrible fucking people they are. And one thing I just can't help thinking is, like, a big part of what they're trying to do here, comes down to, like, deterrence. Essentially, when the Gaza division got wrecked on the 7th of October, which is an aspect of that gets forgotten because it's not very useful for propaganda and Israel does not want to dwell on it. But the Gaza division got wrecked. And that kind of was a major blow to their deterrence, because the whole way that they try to keep Palestinians in check is with the idea that they have this invincible army. And it didn't look very invincible. So part of what they're trying to do is just sort of reestablish deterrence. Sort of like the NYPD, like one of their cops got just cold-cocked the other day. And so the NYPD are, like, out for blood, again, to re-establish deterrence, to make people afraid of them again. But the trouble with the way they're doing it, for them, which is, I mean, it's one thing if you decide to demonstrate that you are capable of awful shit, and can fight. Hello, Hail Satine. That's right, I wanted to get some people in as mods just in case, because there was a whole lot of people just regurgitating Vosh bullshit on the comments to my video on the Yemeni sanctions and everything. So I may once I figure out how to do that, go and just make make people mods if that comes up. But so it's one thing if you demonstrate that on one hand you are extremely competent, and on the other hand you are like horrible people who are capable of doing just utterly morally repugnant things. It's quite another thing if you demonstrate that A, you are capable of doing utterly just repugnant things, but you are not capable of actually fighting people who know how. And that is what Israel is doing. Israel is doing the latter. And I cannot see that shit going well for them in the long run. Because then you're not really establishing the fear so much as you're pissing people off and demonstrating that actually you're not invincible after all. I just cannot see that ending well for them. Now, we're gonna look at the quad today, if for no other reason than I'm very proud of the intro animation that I created for them. And I want everybody to see it. So I think that's where we're gonna go. There are a couple of options within that, though, I should say. There is the quad talking about how you can't be Christian and not love Israel and the Jewish people, which is already anti-Semitic because it's equating Jews to Israel. It's going to be bad. We've got where is it? The hypocrisy of the genocide claim by, again, the quad, complaining about the ICJ ruling. Does anyone have any particular feelings? Yeah, I mean, their fucking videos are just them emptying mags into empty rooms. And that one guy who's, like, stole somebody's, what I think was an African gray parrot. And one thing to know about parrots, because I've had parrots most of my life, and I love parrots, they form very deep attachments. They mourn losses, and a big part of how they mourn, part of it is a bit of self-harm, but also they can be very aggressive around people who are, like, strange to them. And those beaks can do amputations. They have small heads, but they have very powerful fucking jaws. So I'm kind of hoping that parrot, assists in the war effort. Oh, thank you so much, Riveroon. It may not prove to be necessary, but we'll see. If it is, I've got it all set up and I will mod you. Because, I mean, that first of the two Vosh videos on Yemen absolutely just exploded. It's like, I've never had anything get above 1,000 views. Certainly not in less than a week. But okay. And, like, 90 comments, and it is all people just regurgitating his talking points, without apparently realizing that other people had said the exact same thing. Okay, so get ready for the only pro-Israel propaganda program with these awful fucking people.
The church, there are no churches in Gaza. Unfortunately, there are no Christians.
And now the Arab population has increased over time for all their whining. Can I add one thing to that?
Yep.
And why? I thought it was fascinating, distressing.
Sometimes the hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Ugh, God, they suck. Yeah, I worked on that this week, and I'm really quite proud of it. I learned some new skills in order to make that happen. So, what's everyone's preference? The one where they're trying to deny that that Israel has a case to answer in the World Court. Oh, there's also the man. This is also the Quad. The man battling Jake Uyghur on Israel and Hamas. Or we've got We've got the one about like Christian Zionism. Which of those appeals the most? You know, I think about... I've occasionally done streams in the afternoon, just sort of on the fly, where I've worked on animations and stuff, and you know, you can watch it in real time. I was thinking of doing that, partially as a bit of a skill share, because I use a piece of really, really powerful free software that can be upgraded for expensive for this, and you know, as a way of showing what that can do and how to do it. So, does anyone have a strong preference? I think we're going to look at the one that is the Young Turfs crossover. We can always switch over later if it turns out to be a dud. Let me know if any audio adjustments need to be made. Oh, incidentally, does anyone recognize the music at the end of the intro?
Our show, and we're really proud to have.
I mashed
And now
up.
from the very sublime to perhaps a lighter touch on our show.
Oh, this is a short one, too. Oh, a lighter touch of the very sublime. When the fuck did these people ever do the very sublime? So we're going to have what they count as a lighter touch. In the form of the guy who is there to make Cenk on the Young Turfs look like he has decent positions on anything, when in fact he just sucks up to Biden for the most part.
And we're really proud to have a guest all the way from Hollywood who has been also on the front lines of fighting the war of words for Israel against some pretty heavy anti-Israel voices.
And not least amongst them, Israeli soldiers' own fucking TikToks.
Ben Gleeb. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Flora, and everybody. Thank you.
How long have you been in Israel for?
This is day 8.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's going.
Okay, God, they're all wearing fucking dog tags. What you see there, what she's got around her neck, and what he's got there, Israeli army dog tags. Like, fuck right off.
Really well. I've been here during better times before, so it's wild. You know, this trip is a very different purpose than coming before, which was just to meet girls and get drunk. This is the
Like, God.
opposite of that.
Yes.
Like, I mean, did you have to... What the fuck... How much trouble are you having getting laid? That you're like, you know, maybe I'd have better chances in apartheid.
Girl came up to me, I'm like, please, not this trip.
Not now.
And don't offer me any alcohol.
No. Well, I do need alcohol some of the nights. I do need some.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't say no to it either. I'm just sort of regretting not putting brandy in this tea.
Tell me about it. Ben, you are most famous for, at least in the last few months, for co-anchoring on the Young Turks.
Which is just another thing that sucks about the Young Turks. Like, why are they platforming this jabroni? There is literally no justification for platforming this guy, unless you're trying to say that the pro-genocide viewpoint is legitimate, which, no, it isn't. It isn't.
Not friend of Israel, Cenk, what's his name?
Cenk Uygur, yes.
Cenk Uygur, who is Turkish, one of the founders of Young Turks, and at the moment, a very loud, prolific, anti-Israel voice.
Yeah, and not really, though. I mean, it's just... He's just a fucking liberal. Like... There are more prolific anti-Israel voices in the Jewish community of Berlin. Let me put it that way.
How do you manage this? How can you stand this, man?
Well, Jesus Christ, can she ever... God, is she like after Matt Miller's job at the State Department? With this fucking snide look on her face? The fake human rights activist here on the right.
And how can you really sit on a co-anchor show with the crap that he spews?
Well, because, you see, I mean, I'm much better at crap spewing.
Yep.
And why?
Yeah, no, I mean, and the question is, why are you invited to do this, actually? Like, what legitimate contribution do you have? There is no legitimate...
Okay, well, the first let me just say, he is anti-Israel very strongly at the moment and yells at me in these debates about that, and I try to debate back.
Yeah, I wonder why it is. It's interesting that he says at the moment there. I mean, it's almost as if Israel's doing something that has made people especially hostile to Israel at the moment. You know, I wonder what that could be that Israel might be doing that has got people pissed off at Israel.
He is a good man, however, and I do think he cares very much about people in general.
Well, I mean, not trans people, obviously, but... I mean, we already heard what the rest of this lot think of trans people.
I think he sees this war completely wrong, as much as the world does, and he doesn't. I think he's seeing it through a simplistic lens that is what a lot of people are. They're buying into a lot of the propaganda that's being fed because.
Well, I mean, apparently not yours, though.
To his credit, he still has me on the air to lead anchor when I'm on with him. And
that is not to his credit. That is to his fucking debit. Okay, that is to his absolute fucking debit.
Frame the story as I like, present it as I like, and then he just yells at me and says I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, that's even worse. Wait, why are you... I mean, shit. I thought my opinion of Cenk had bottomed out already. Letting him frame the narrative? Like, why the fuck would you let him frame the narrative? He's just gonna be full of shit. They let the fucking facts It's not like we have a shortage of evidence of what's going on. You know, we are absolutely inundated with fucking footage of what's going on, and a lot of the worst of it is shot by the Israeli goons themselves. Why let this motherfucker... There's literally no justification for letting this motherfucker frame anything.
And when other anchors lead stories about Israel, it is completely the opposite and thrown around terms that are not at all fair or quite maligning of this nation. So
yeah, why would anyone be in the mood to malign Israel right now? I mean, I wonder.
Credit has me on the air still. Why do I do it? I never understand why anybody resigns when they're in a position of power or with a reach of voice that they could actually affect change. That just literally causes the problem to be worse. You know, I never understand when somebody's in an administration that is corrupt and they're like, this is so corrupt, I'm leaving and I will have no effect on making it any better.
Well, yeah, but the thing is that when you do that, you, at the very least, aren't making you worse. Then you aren't complicit. Of course, I mean, it is just wild to hear him saying this sort of thing, because, of course, His issue is actually that they are not bad enough.
My one chance, it makes no sense. You're in there, like, we do enough preaching to the choir in our echo chambers.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that is really hard, particularly in the U.S., it's to get airtime if you're pro-Israel.
Social media, I could quit the network on a protest stance on this and then just talk to people who already agree with me, or I can stay on this network and have more and more people hate me every time I go on the air. But
I'm just spitballing here, but there's a third option, and there's maybe, instead of disgusting every single person who watches you with your fucking ghoulish stance in support of a genocide that's going on in front of everybody's eyes, maybe you could not do that. Maybe you could just have a moment where you say, wow, that's actually really fucked up. Like, even Wolf Blitzer, one of the most pro-Israel motherfuckers on TV, had a moment there when, like, the really big attack on, I believe it was Jabalia, where Israel's claim was that they were going to kill, like, 500 people in order to get one guy who wasn't there. And even he had a moment where he did, like, a double take. Like, what the fuck? I never heard of this guy, actually. I don't watch the Young Turfs that much because I just don't see why. I mean, if I want to, like, hit myself in the head with something, I got a concrete ball. I mean, I don't need the Young Turfs in order to cause pain.
And I've already seen some shift in the...
I mean, like, watching this is painful enough, let's be honest.
Comments of some people being more open-minded to what I say. Not a lot, but some.
Once you explain how you're co-hosting and really giving free reign, I mean, that takes away the why, because I grew up the why. No, that... So, I mean, I agree with you.
And notice the color of this is Israeli Army olive. Okay? Like he's fucking on the front lines here with the fucking dog tags and shit.
But do you feel, you say, well, you're starting to see some kind of, moderation or different kinds of questions. Do you think that you really are able to have an influence?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a poll of these people, but just from my gauge on the comments and the viewer comments that we read on air. Originally, they were terrible, and people calling me...
Well, that sounds like maybe people are,
Genocide Ben, like they call it.
Well, yeah, okay, that's what we're calling him. You hear that, Chad? He's got a nickname. He's Genocide Ben. Here she is with the fucking smirk again. Jesus.
Baby killer. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he is Genocide Ben. It's not... You don't get to find that funny, though. The reason people are calling him that is because he's what? Jesus Christ. They're like crypto bros. Crypto bros, when any criticism people have of that business model, instead of actually addressing the criticism and saying, yeah, actually that doesn't apply because of this, this, and this, what they do is they say it back to you and then they add lol. That's all they've got here. They've got just lol. Genocide Ben lol. Oh god, and he's got his fucking boots on. The motherfucker, what the fuck you need those boots for? That look like they're like 3 sizes too big? Chat, look at how much fucking ankle space. You could sprain your ankle in those fucking clown shoes. Did they just give those to him before he went on air without asking him his shoe size?
That's the move. So now they don't use that as much, and they're not. Some are saying that they're happy now. They said they used to think I should be off the air, and a lot of people trying to get me fired from the air.
I mean, good. Continue trying, please.
But then now they say, like, actually, I'm convinced it makes sense to hear both sides, and Jake also defends that. To his credit, he says, you have to.
Well, I mean, of course he defends that. Of course he defends that. Because the thing is, Cenk is a Democrat. Jank is never going to go full on and admit that and actually just say Butcher Biden is doing a genocide, because he's going to be sucking up to Butcher Biden. This is we've got an election year coming up, and he's never going to do that. He's going to try to find some way to make him look good. To have drip?
He says, I call it genocide, Ben doesn't see it that way.
Wait, okay. I mean, I call it genocide, Ben doesn't see it that way. That is so piss weak.
I have to hear both perspectives. So...
No, you don't. I don't need to hear Holocaust deniers' perspectives. I don't need to hear the perspectives of fucking Notre Dame truthers either.
Big strike against somebody to erroneously call it a genocide, but at least being open to hearing the alternative that
all of the leading genocide experts in the world are wrong. Many of whom are actually not anti-Zionists, it's worth noting.
It's not a genocide when the people who attacked you are the ones who literally are intending and trying over and over again to commit a genocide.
Which is just a lie. And it's worth noting, it's not even a novel lie. A lot of people, because, I mean, the way that a lot of this stuff gets taught in history class, they don't really show you the sort of justifications that the people who commit huge atrocities actually used in order to sell the stuff to the people who they were giving the order to do the shit. For example, most people don't realize, I think, that the line that was given to the SS goons who were carrying out genocide in Europe under Nazi rule was specifically this line. It was literally, the claim that the line that was being held is that, we have to kill them because they want to exterminate us. That was the line. That it's us or them, and all this sort of shit. This is nothing new. This idea of, I know you are, but what am I-ing genocide, that is old school. I have never heard drip. Do you have any idea where that came from? I find that fascinating.
It's a weird flipped time. Everybody's looking in the mirror and reflecting outwardly what they see internally and don't want to address. It's very strange. It's very...
So what are you seeing in the mirror, genocide, Ben?
very wild.
It's also just not a genocide.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that's the other thing.
Right.
It's just not.
100%.
It's not.
Conflicted about the idea.
I mean, okay, so maybe all the genocide experts in the Genocide Convention are wrong, is what you're saying?
Presenting both sides with someone like him, only because I agree with you in principle, but only because it's not genocide and there are actual definitions. And
Yeah, the actual definitions are precisely why the International Court of Justice said Israel has a case to answer. The actual definitions, I mean, chat, I have a feeling that you've probably looked at the definitions. They've been discussed pretty much ad nauseum ever since Netanyahu and Gallant first started talking about how they were going to starve 2 million people to death.
to say there are two sides when there is a definition and it is not that.
I mean, she's right. There are no two sides. There are no two sides on this. It is absolutely just unconscionable to pretend that there are.
It's a little bit problematic for me.
Well, okay, so let's hear the definition. We've got, this is a room full of fucking lawyers. Yeah, Fleur there, the fake deputy mayor, she is a titled barrister. She's a silk. She's King's Counsel. Her parents are both also aristocrats and barristers, silks. I don't know about Emily Schrader. I believe Vivian Berkovic, who shares a surname with fucking, it's the Romanian version of the Son of Sam surname. Just kind of putting that out there. I'm pretty sure she's a solicitor. I'm sure, so, like, you could look at the Genocide Convention, since we do have those definitions. She's right, there are those definitions, and maybe say why it doesn't apply? If it's so obvious? Are you gonna do that? No, I didn't think so.
I would still show up and debate him, and
That's
if you
what I'm
ever want
saying.
someone else to join, I'm in favor. However, I am conflicted about that.
Well, I'm
on that
completely
issue.
exactly, but
Apparently you're also conflicted about saying what the definition is and why this doesn't rate.
the options are just let
Either let
let
him have the
millions
whole
of people
platform,
be
or
100% convinced, or have somebody. point
Except,
back.
are you letting him have the platform when he is willing to have you on? Like, very clearly, I mean, that's the thing, they're calling this guy, like, so anti-Israel and shit. I haven't actually watched his coverage. I would be shocked if he was as anti-Israel as they claim. But, I mean, the thing is, he's literally giving this guy a platform. It isn't that he's, like, refusing to give up a seat that is being taken away from him. He is being given a seat at the table to do his, like, genocidal propaganda. Look at those fucking shoes, though.
In real time push back and say very ridiculous, stupid comment, makes no sense, and bring some sort of common sense. I think the way I see it, and as I watch the debates back, it seems to me
You watch
like
yourself?
only in this topic.
How could he? How could anyone? How did they watch themselves? Like, how? I'm not them, and it's hard for me to watch them. How must you feel when this is your job, just lying day in and day out to justify fucking mass murder? And, like, grinning ghoulishly as you're doing it.
Because
Okay, I
someone
know
like
what
Wants
myself.
to do better.
Okay.
I know. I do watch it because I want, because, we're very self-critical women.
Oh, of course. It's sort of like, Ashira, the political moderator who, did a national security fellowship in Israel or some shit. That's what I found when I was looking her up on LinkedIn, because I wanted to get to the bottom of this thing where I was sure I saw in her Twitter bio that she called herself a Christian. But I looked at her Twitter bio and now it's empty. So I don't know if I looked at the wrong person's Twitter bio. I don't know exactly what that is. But I saw her LinkedIn, and one of the things is this fucking, like, National Security Fellowship thing. She went to UC Chico. The UC, the University of California System University that right-wingers send their kids to so that they don't turn into communists like they would at UCLA.
I could have said this and I should have done that. And that facial expression does not look good at my age. Anyway.
No, I mostly watch it back just to see how good I look. And to
You don't.
myself on
You're a
the back.
very handsome man.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
single, ladies.
That's
Single.
right. True
I'm in
that.
Tel Aviv. Not this trip, but on the next trip.
Not
We're going to
this
be
trip,
focusing
correct.
on finding
I
a
thought
wife.
that's all right for you.
Thank you.
Oh God, yes, because because they've got to increase the birth rate. This is like an obsession in Israel because the Palestinians they birth rate is too high, and it's the demographic bomb they call it. But they're not genocidal or anything. They just think it's a bad thing that members of a defined ethnic group are having children.
Thank you so much. Every time you say someone says that, it doesn't work out well, but DMs are open.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine fucking that guy.
Ben, one question I have about him. He's Turkish, right?
Yeah.
Is he?
Of course, this room full of like fucking racist propagandists are immediately gonna go, oh well, check out his ethnicity though.
Erdogan mouthpiece?
No, he's a fucking Biden mouthpiece. Where the hell are you from? Oh, she's from London. That's right.
Turks getting any money from Erdogan?
No, not at all. I mean, the network was started by Cenk and two
Yeah.
Jewish friends of his, and the name is just, I don't know his stances on
It's a great
everything.
name, by the way.
Of course they think it's a great name because Cenk denies the Armenian genocide and Israel denies the Armenian genocide.
Yeah, I don't
Almost as good
agree.
as the quad.
Almost.
Yeah, almost as good as that horrible, like, why, I still don't understand why, that it's just that name sucks, actually. Like, leaving aside how much they suck, that name sucks.
I don't agree because it's so polarizing and the network is not Turkish. And I have to tell people I'm an anchor on the Young Turks. They say, are you Turkish? What is it, Turkish news? Does this come out of Turkey? Is it funded by Erdogan?
This is
All
the
these
same crowd
questions.
that's never acted in World War II.
Yeah,
Correct.
Right.
People don't like sequels. It's the main reason.
They don't understand, like, whatever.
yes. But my question is, if he isn't a mouthpiece of Erdogan, does he oppose Erdogan? Is he a groupie of Erdogan?
Wait, okay. One of the things Zionists love to act like, it's like they will freak out at the idea that anyone is curious about, like, an Israeli's stance on the genocide. But, you know, he's Turkish, so therefore we must know exactly what he thinks of Erdogan. Normal people.
He's on the same side of this debate as Erdogan right now. And a lot of my Turkish friends in the diaspora hate Erdogan.
Yeah, except Erdogan is on the same. Erdogan is doing the same thing that a lot of rulers in the region are doing. They're actually quietly on the same side as these ghouls here. But they can't say that openly because the public would not stand for it because because overwhelmingly solidarity with Palestinians is just that is just the default position in the community, in the population. So Erdogan and Israel have a lot of things in common. I mean, like, for one thing, they both are kind of cool with ISIS. They both are very cool with letting ISIS across their border and letting them get all patched up and come back and go and off and murder Kurds.
And he hates what he's doing.
This is the Quad. Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah. Were you there? Hey, Kitasta, were you there? When I ran the intro? Because I was saying, see, there's a pun in there. And I was lamenting the fact that it's a great pun, but it's an Afrikaans pun on their name. And I have, like, almost no Afrikaans speakers in my, in chat. And you're like the one you're like the one person who would appreciate that, you would actually not need, okay, ons gaan dit nog een keer maken. We're gonna do it one more time, just so that somebody who understands the language of the pun can see it. Get ready for the only pro-Israel propaganda program with these awful fucking people.
The church, there are no churches in Gaza. Unfortunately, there are no Christians.
And now the Arab population has increased over time for all their whining.
But can I add one thing to that?
Yep.
And why? I thought it was
comes in a
fascinating, distressing.
Sometimes the hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
God, they suck. The Quad. Maar omdat Hulla's Quad. Hulla's altijd fucking Quad. Well, I'm always reading stuff in Afrikaans. I like the language. It's a fun language to speak. I enjoy it. And, I mean, the thing about having a bunch of languages in your head is that you have puns come up in your head that absolutely do not work given the audience that you're looking at. Yeah. Because it's just the wrong language, but it's a really good fucking pun. And so I just said, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. Quad. Because they call themselves Quad, Q-U-A-D.
The only kind of secular Muslim country who could be very influential, and in the end, they're just going towards, radicalization. So
I wonder, like, it's at least Israel's not going towards radicalization. I mean, they have literal fascists, openly acknowledged fascists, in government. They're just openly talking about exterminating 2 million people, but they're not radicalized.
I mean, what does he think about it?
I don't know the answer. I don't think we've ever discussed it on air when I've been on. And so, yeah, maybe I'll bring it up next
Well,
time.
let's
But
bring you to the Quad. So
he would be happy.
Oh, God. Okay. Yeah. Wait, they want to do a proper crossover with the Young Turfs? Okay, that sounds horrible. First of all, that sounds like absolutely fucking horrifying. On the other hand, fucking hell, I would have to do that on stream. If they do that, I would like be contractually obliged by like the non-existent hypothetical contract that I just made up in my head to do that, because that just sounds like such an amazing fucking car crash.
Yeah, I mean, if you would zoom it in, he'd be happy to come on.
Let's zoom in.
He would love to do it, actually, I'm sure, because he's also running for president right now, and
He's
so...
running for president,
Yeah.
and does he happen to be a misogynist as well? Because
Yes.
those
Well, I mean,
are our favorite types of
Well, that's...
I would not be surprised if that's true, because, I mean, look at the fucking government they're standing. They're misogynistic as hell. In fact, at one point, the first video from this law that we looked at, they were sort of talking about how, you know, they're a little bit uncomfortable with this government because they're so openly misogynist. Just a little bit. Not so uncomfortable that they wouldn't take money in order to do propaganda for them, but a little bit uncomfortable.
the only way you can win as president in America.
Very true. Very true.
then you also.
I mean, he's not wrong
I
there.
did run for president. That's why I didn't win, because I'm too nice to people, and I respect women.
You're not
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, except for the Palestinian ones, clearly.
And you didn't have like sleazy friends.
No,
So
no.
when
But
Yeah, because, I mean, he immediately talks about what he thinks about Gaza, and nobody's gonna sleep with him after that. Yeah, it is exactly the sort of horror story that we would absolutely have to watch. Because, I mean, that is my content. I watch awful shit and I blow my stack. Slowly sometimes, sometimes quickly. But, I mean, that's what I do here, basically.
true. Again, I'd like to remind people. No, it wouldn't have worked out, but I ran just in efforts to stop Trump. I believe he's an existential threat to democracy and to truth.
Like what democracy though? I mean, how do you threaten the existence of a thing? Like, are you also worried about the existence of Tinkerbell?
In the world, and as somebody who's just the most blatantly selfish person in it for only himself.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but and this is one of the things that really I wrote about this a little bit on Facebook, and I think maybe I also put it on Twitter. But one of the things that really gets me about this particular moment in U.S. history is that the way consent is being manufactured for fascism, for authoritarianism, is by pretending that it's only coming from one sector of the political class, or maybe just one guy, just one fucking guy, is the whole threat. And so everybody's, and they're not wrong that he is, like, at the very least, seriously fascist adjacent, happy to share the company of fascists, serious reactionary authoritarian, fuck, all those things. He's a piece of shit. I mean, no actual argument there. But the thing is that when you're looking over at him, you're missing, like, half of the problem. Because the movement towards, like, authoritarian rule in this country has been bipartisan. It has been a consensus. You can look, I mean, every year it gets worse. Every year, I mean, like, some of the worst anti-immigrant laws were passed in the 1990s. Some of the worst laws to make it, like, possible to execute people without them ever having a chance to get a proper appeal hearing in this country, those were passed in the 90s. By Democrats, with the support of Democrats. Bill Clinton fucking loved this shit. And it's just gotten worse. With Bush, it got worse. None of that stuff got reversed under Obama. None of the Bush stuff got reversed. We still have concentration camps, and not just the immigration ones that everybody talks about when Joe Biden isn't in charge of them. But, you know, Guantanamo's still open. There are still abductees, still hostages in Guantanamo. We don't know exactly how many other of these camps are being operated, because the only one that anyone knows about is Guantanamo. Everything else is classified. Obama says, oh, well, he closed all of the so-called black sites. But the thing about the black sites, of course, is that nobody, not even the Red Cross, ever had access to them. So you can say that, and there's no way to verify it. So that stuff is still, like, going on. It has gotten worse every single year. You know, and when you have, like, now the discourse, the political discourse, the mainstream discourse is all this, like, conspiracy shit about how how anyone to your left is, God, they've got to be some sort of an op. You know, like, I mean, Nancy Pelosi can't decide whether 80% of the people who's, hello, Phoenix, bonjour, bonjour, hello, Phoenix, she can't decide whether 80% of the people who have any likelihood of ever voting for Democrats are under the control of Russia or under the control of China. Like, that is fascist discourse right there. This sort of outside agitator bullshit. Like, authoritarianism, the threat to what, you can't even say, like, the threat to democracy, because the U.S. has never really gotten that close to democracy. This has always been a remarkably authoritarian society that does not give very much at all meaningful opportunity to for the population to participate in any kind of important decisions. I mean, I would actually say, there are plenty of countries, many of them, basically all of them, not what I would consider myself to be fighting for, that at the very least are no more, could not be said to be more authoritarian than the U.S., and in some respects could be said to be less. Like that Families Code in Cuba that they enacted, the one that got rid of the nuclear family as the template of what a family is. I mean, people. There were massive debates. There was a whole huge public comment session, and it was passed by referendum. That's a level of influence over, like, over policy decisions that people in this country can only really dream of. And oh yeah, Kid Astor. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about the genocidal talk from Israel. I mean, what the genocide experts have been saying all along is, normally with genocide, the thing that is hard to prove is intent. Intent is the central element to the offense of genocide under the Genocide Convention. And normally, the people who are doing genocide are kind of careful to be cagey about that. They don't openly admit that that's what they're trying to do. Whereas Israeli officials are just openly saying, yeah, we're gonna starve 2 million people to death. And fucking Netanyahu keeps on going on about Amalek and how it's all about exterminating Amalek and, you know, including their children and stuff. And yeah, I can understand feeling helpless. I can totally understand that. I mean, I'm off in the middle of nowhere. Like, I can't even get to a protest about this. This is like, so this is, apart from like trying to signal boost people I follow in Gaza and making sure that information about it gets out there. I mean, it's like all I really can do at the moment. And it absolutely, it's absolutely horrible. Because, you know, it's like, people, some of whom, I wouldn't say I have much of an acquaintance with them, but I, have followed their work for a long time. And, their lives are constantly at risk. And it is fucking hard to watch this. It is legit, without being in a position to really directly intervene. And I try to find, I try to give as well, like, my thoughts on what could be done to have a direct influence as well. Yeah, even if I were in a position to get to protest, like, my ankle, I fucked up my ankle, like, a month ago. And then I re-fucked it right after it was starting to properly recover. And so I don't know if I could actually manage a long walk without it really, really hurting. And I certainly don't know if I could manage to, like, run away from the cops if I needed to at the moment. Which, given the kind of violence we're seeing against protests, is an entirely realistic prospect. You know, it sucks. I mean, it is just really, it is hard, and so it's like, oh, yeah, see, it's legal, but that doesn't mean much. Like, I mean, protest, like, just about anywhere you go, protest is theoretically legal. Like, you look at the Constitution and it says you're allowed to do it. But what's legal and what's not legal depends entirely on Amachata. It depends entirely on the Blauchata, the cops. What they do is ultimately what determines what rights you got. I mean, a court might later say, yeah, they shouldn't have done that, but the thing is, by the time the court says that, they already fucking did it. The damage is, to a great extent, done. And there's no accountability for cops. Cops get away with all sorts of shit. I mean, I don't follow South Africa too closely, but I've heard enough about what cops get away with there to know it isn't that different there.
And I was very afraid when I was watching the early 2020 campaign and all the candidates running against him on the Democratic side were just cautious politicians who were speaking very boringly, and I didn't think they had any chance to win.
Well, and the thing is, out of all of those, the one the DNC insisted on going with is the guy who had the least chance to win. And they're doing it again. This time, I mean, it went from being somebody nobody liked to somebody that people overwhelmingly just absolutely hate.
To be able to beat a man who's just the greatest flamethrower. He's the biggest.
Well, I mean, the miners in Marikana probably are probably a little bit nervous. I mean,
heckler in political history, and the way you beat a heckler is with a comedian.
That is not. I mean, that's not the heckler-comedian relationship.
And that's what I do well. It worked for Zelensky. A lot of people that criticized my campaign.
Of course they love Zelensky. I mean, that's another example of, like, a guy who's, like, nominally Jewish, but he's kind of cool with massive anti-Semitism as long as it suits him.
The first question was, you're a comedian, is this a joke? And then Zelensky becomes the hero of the world, and they're a lot quieter now about that.
But you know what your strategy should be, because Zelensky actually had a show about him being the president.
Yeah, I mean, and that show was financed by the same oligarch who ended up bankrolling his presidential run.
And then he became the president. So maybe Netflix should give you a show.
Oh God, don't give him a show, please, Netflix. It's bad enough you keep on dumping money on David Chappelle.
About you being president.
Even though David Chappelle's been on his crap hell arc for a long time. Oh God, yeah, well, that's what we need. This is just this sounds horrifying, and I'm glad that copyright restrictions would prevent me watching it on stream, because otherwise I would feel I had to, and it sounds horrible.
If you know anybody on Netflix, please pitch this. I got people. Or you can create an alternate reality here in the quad where you start referring to me.
They have kind of created an alternate reality there, though. Like, their entire discourse is built around an alternate timeline that has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on the ground.
So then,
President, Mr. President,
are you not concerned this time around that Biden is not going to beat Trump if Trump ends up being the nominee? Like, what is your concern right now? Is Gavin Newsom your governor?
God, he sucks.
Listen, I am concerned. I don't like that Biden just had his 105th birthday.
I mean, I have to say, like, the way this election is shaping up, the only thing you can really root for is the accuracy of actuarial tables.
He's not the sharpest he's ever been by any stretch.
He's been amazing on Israel.
He's been amazing.
Oh yeah. See, and which is hilarious because they're actually pointing out precisely why he's so unpopular. Yeah, the fact that they like him. I mean, and this is, let's just remember, this show, this JNS, so-called Jewish News Syndicate, is connected to Breitbart. It's far right. This is not liberal Zionism. These are Likudniks. Like, I mean, I know that she is, the fake deputy mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur, the one who, the posh, tough fucking silk, I know that she's Likud. I would be shocked if any of these others are not Likud. And these people are all, like, absolutely loving Joe Biden. That is precisely why Joe Biden's odds are not good, actually.
First president to fly during wartime to Israel, and he's really been great. So a lot of people are saying they won't vote for Biden again because his stance on Israel is not strong enough or idiotic. I mean,
No, it's not because it's not strong enough. Oh, wait, no, that's right. There are people, or is he saying, like, wait a second. Is he saying that there are people who won't vote for Biden because sending unprecedented amounts of weapons to exterminate people in Gaza is not pro-Israel enough for them? Like, what the fuck would they want? Like, literally, I do not understand how he could possibly be... Yeah, I mean, if there are Zionists who are not satisfied with him, with what he's been doing on this, then I really do not understand, like, what they could possibly want more. Because he's giving Israel everything. I mean, yes, he has to, like, you have these planted stories in the press about how he's frustrated or something that are leaked from White House sources. But he's not frustrated in any way that means anything. Like, I mean, assuming that he's even frustrated, and there's no reason to believe that. Because the thing is, if he did not like what Israel was doing, he's got ways of stopping it. Like, he could stop sending them the weapons. For example, he could call Karim Khan and say, you know what? Actually, we don't have any objection to you proceeding on the Palestine file. Why don't you just do your worst there? And he really drop him in it. Like, every single day that Israel keeps doing this shit, they are more internationally isolated, they have more enemies, and they need the U.S. more to hold all of that sentiment at bay. I mean, there's a huge amount of leverage if Biden wanted to do anything, if he gave a shit, but he clearly is actually cool with what's going on, but his people know that that is jeopardizing his re-election chances, so they're like planting this story that he's so frustrated or impatient or whatever.
and a lot of people are saying that, and
In your world, in the kind of progressive...
yes,
Right.
and people are
The progressive world.
that, but whoever is
Because he released $6 billion to the Islamic Republic of Iran.
That's a good point. It's a good counter argument. But that deal was in place beforehand, and
Oh, well.
people aren't
I mean,
taking
there are deals
proxies
and
into
there are
account
deals.
as they should.
I mean, and also it was their money to begin with.
That's a fair point. But whoever is putting the prompter speeches in Biden's sunglasses is generally doing the right thing for Israel at this moment.
I mean, and what gets me about this is just how absolutely short-term this view is. Because this is not conducive to the long-term survival of the regime. Letting these pricks show what they're capable of, at the same time as they also show what they're incapable of, i.e. actually making any kind of a showing against, like, real soldiers. And I'm not saying real soldiers in any kind of moralizing sense here. Like, yeah, plenty of real soldiers commit huge atrocities. What I'm saying is that they also know how to fight. And Israel's military, that eludes them, because they've never needed it. They have, like, their use case there is, like, terrorizing little kids and old people. So, like, when they're actually facing any kind of a trained, organized, disciplined fighting force, they look like a bunch of wallies.
Moment.
that's not going to be good for them in the long run.
Yeah.
And he has been always declared Zionist, and he has some good people around him.
He has some great people around him.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Blinken is actually the president, in my view. But
I mean, actually, she's probably not wrong there. And I mean, a fun fact about Blinken. One of his first things in office, this was shortly after the white supremacist dictatorship of Jeanine Áñez in Bolivia had to step down. So, the new elected government immediately proceeded to charge her with genocide and crimes against humanity for the major atrocities that her U.S.-backed white supremacist regime carried out. And one of the first things Tony Blinken did was go on Twitter, having never shown any interest in human rights during the entire period of the dictatorship in Bolivia, and suddenly declare that it was a human rights violation to be charging Áñez with genocide for the genocide she committed, for the crimes against humanity she committed, because supposedly you have a human right not to be charged with genocide for atrocities you commit as part of your illegal white supremacist dictatorship. I don't know. He didn't explain what he meant by that, but I just find it interesting that this is that is how his term in office began.
and
Blinken.
Anthony Blinken.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I think-
At least it's not Obama, would be a disaster.
Yeah,
because he's been terrible on this conflict, whereas
He's
the
not been great
Clintons
since the
have been
conflict.
amazing.
They don't know what's good for them. What's amazing here, because the thing is, what Israel needs, if they wanted to assure the continuity of the regime, is people who can look like they don't like this, look like they do not like what's going on, look like they're pretend to publicly chide the government and all that, while at the same time making sure it is possible for them to continue to do what they're doing, which is what Obama did. He was really good at it. He would give these speeches, especially early on when people still had expectations of him, about how, settlements were illegitimate, new settlements. He was very clear, new settlements were illegitimate. And there needed to be a new day in the Middle East or whatever. And he would send Joe Biden in there to calm the motherfuckers down and say, yeah, that's not how, you don't have to take that seriously. That's just for the folks at home. That is what they really need, but they are so fucking off the deep end at this point that they do not even know what's good for them. They think that the way that they assure this regime's continuity is by having U.S. politicians be as ghoulish as they are, and that's not how that works.
Yeah, they have been speaking out
And
nicely, for
Michelle
sure.
has been silent on
Terrible.
Yeah,
silent on Bring Them Home.
Bring
Silent.
them home. She had the
I'd
Bring
like
Them
to-
Goes Home
Yeah.
when
I mean, what's hilarious about Bring Them Home, not hilarious, but it's interesting. When they say it in English, people have this idea that is somehow a demand that can be directed meaningfully against the Palestinians, when the Palestinian resistance has had an offer on the table to release them all for a long time. But in Israel, Bring Them Home is very clearly an anti-government demand, because everybody knows there's no way that anyone can be released as long as the place is being carpet bombed, because because if you send them out on the streets at that point, they're just gonna get killed.
Boko Haram did exactly the same, mass rape and kidnapping.
Oh, well,
And we heard nothing from Michelle Obama.
Yeah, except actually that first part, there's still no evidence that that actually happened. Not in the case of Boko Haram, but in the case of the Palestinian resistance, there's literally no evidence. The New York Times are currently furiously backpedaling because their investigation, which managed to avoid Syria doing any kind of due diligence on their bogus ass sources that they used, which did not include a single person saying that this happened to them, which is kind of interesting. They are furiously backpedaling. They have scrapped an episode of The Daily, which is their podcast, that was going to be about this, because amongst other things, the family of one of the supposed victims of this apparently were completely manipulated into commenting, had no idea that this was that these were the claims they were going to be making, and went public and said there's no evidence that this is true. I mean, it's wild that they're still running with that. I mean, it's just like they want to distract from what's going on for at least a little bit. And that's how they do it.
Shame on you.
It has been very, very sad because it's easy to stand for returning hostages when it's not controversial.
Political.
Yeah.
But it's not controversial. Like, the only people who have any objection to returning hostages are the government they're doing propaganda for.
When it's controversial, that's when you still need to show that you have some sort of gumption, some sort of morals to stand on.
Which is why Ben obviously supports the release of the Palestinian hostages that Israel's holding. Thousands of them.
Why would
Why
it be
is it
controversial? They're hostages. They're civilians taken.
Like that's
don't even
besides the
think-
Actually, a lot of them are, the ones taken by the Palestinians are military officers, including a number of generals.
The answer to
girls
that,
getting serially raped in a dungeon.
There's no evidence of that. There's literally nobody has said that happened.
yeah, no, I mean, when you put it that way, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's great how, I mean, they were just, like, talking about how they wish they could have a parallel reality, and it's like, once again, they're just manufacturing a parallel reality.
But obviously the counter argument is that people think once you weigh into that side, they don't see it as, they agree it's horrible, they don't see it as bad as people losing their lives constantly every day, and so...
Okay. This will be interesting, because that is, like, the closest thing these people have ever had to pushback. To at least acknowledge that actually, tens of thousands of people are being murdered. Yeah, I mean, Israel responded to the ICJ's ruling that ordered them to immediately stop killing people by almost breaking a record for the number of people killed in 24 hours, like 487 people.
But they didn't apply
It is
that.
inherently
worse.
political.
They didn't apply that to
I prefer to
Nigeria.
die than be raped in a
They
dungeon.
don't what?
They didn't apply that logic to Nigeria.
They didn't
Michelle
apply-
Obama did not.
Who was carpet bombing Nigeria? Like, I mean,
apply that to Nigeria, right? So same argument.
I don't remember that there was, like, a U.S.-backed, large-scale genocide of the population of Nigeria around the time of Boko Haram. Help me out, chat. Is that something you remember? Because, yeah, of course that argument wasn't made. If I feel like I would have heard that that being pointed out at the time, because I was in discussions around this at the time, and that, that didn't come up. So, like, that doesn't apply, obviously.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm not here to defend that.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, I don't get the principled approach.
Then
Yeah, of course she doesn't get the principled approach. She doesn't have one.
let's finish on a really positive note and tell us a little bit about your mom, who is Israeli and did the army in what year? You showed me a really inspiring picture
Yeah.
of your mother, really attractive woman, surrounded by men, looking like a real badass.
Yep.
No.
In the army. Tell us a little bit about her and how she inspires you.
My mom is a total badass. She's amazing. She's Israeli.
Yeah, her ass is no doubt bad. He came out of it.
From Yaakov, and she went to the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and she was a teacher here and an actor as well. Before she met my dad and moved to the States, served in the IDF, and because she was very beautiful and strong and amazing, but I think mostly beautiful, they put her dead center in the front of the
Pictures.
the
Look how
pictures.
equal.
Yeah, because that's, who gives a fuck, okay? We've got 20 minutes to go, so, and it looks like are we just gonna have his, bullshit about his mom? Okay, well, let's hear more bullshit about his mom. Maybe he'll say what unit it was, so we can find out what atrocities she's involved in.
God.
Yes, and for the same reason, Moshe Dayan recruited her to work in his office.
Oh my God. Did
And so
she
she
manage
worked-
to?
Moshe Dayan, who enunciated very clearly Israel's policy on the Palestinians when he said, "What we need to make clear to them is that we have no solution. You will live like dogs, and those who want to leave can." That was Dayan on the Palestinians. So, I mean, and that's, it's worth noting, that's liberal Zionism. That is going back to the so-called socialist Zionism of the mid-20th century and shit. Yeah, this is very long-standing.
Did he meet to her?
She says he was very respectful to her, that he was hitting on everybody else but not...
Wait, did he Me Too her? Okay, wait a second here. She was just talking about all of this crap about what supposedly Palestinians had done on October 7th with no evidence, and how horrible that was, and he just sort of she just casually just asked Ben here, did Moshe Dayan sexually assault your mom? Just casually, that was like one of his endearing things. What? Wow.
Not the girls in his office, so that's at least impressive. That's because they always stood to his left, so he did not see that.
Wait, okay, so this is why they have trouble understanding a principled stance, because they can't even have a principled stance on whether sexual assault bad. If Moshe Dayan does it, apparently it's cute.
Oh my God.
They were able to evade it. He thought it was an empty office, yeah.
Jesus
They
Christ!
were on the phone with us.
These
He was
fucking
like,
people!
"Give me those files." We're like, "Yeah, throw me right in." They just throw the files in and stay out of the office. So that worked. But she's an incredible woman, you know. She is, I think, you know, like a lot of Israeli women, she's a very sweet, kind-hearted woman, funny, sarcastic, but sweet and kind.
I mean, I have to say, the first, funny Zionist in Israel the next funny Zionist in Israel I encounter will be the first one. Matt Lieb, over at, Bad Hasbara, pointed out, and I think he's quite right, that, even the sense of humor that you see, particularly, embodied in these TikToks and things, it is absolutely unrecognizable as anything to do with what is generally thought of as Jewish humor, because Jewish humor tends to be gallows humor. But the thing about gallows humor, as he was pointing out as well, is that the only reason it's funny is because the person who is telling the joke is the person facing the gallows. It isn't the executioner telling the fucking joke. That's just Nazi shit. And so, I mean, it is just vile.
Until you mess with her, and then she... one time she called into my podcast last week on Earth Available right now, where podcasts are sold. Well, she just called me. She just called me when I phoned.
hilarious.
And I picked up, and I had a guest on, and I said, I'm going to pick up my mom and bring her on the podcast. And I said, Mom, somebody's talking to me, but I'm in the middle of the podcast. I got to go. And we were talking about...
I have the most trouble doing that. Sometimes my wonderful nieces will send me messages in the middle of streaming, and I feel so fucking bad. Because I love talking with them, but at the same time I'm in the middle of streaming and stuff, and I don't want to disappoint them, and relatable moment, like the one bit of relatability in all of this, because so far it's just been straight up ghoulishness.
At least the time. And so she says, no problem, sweetheart. I will let you go. But just remember, I can disassemble an AK-47 in 10 seconds with my eyes closed.
Who cares? Disassembling a thing isn't the hard part. It's putting it back together afterwards. I disassembled a VCR once. I did a really good job of taking apart that VCR. It stayed that way for months until I figured out how I could actually manage to get it back together again. Disassembling the shit is not the hard part.
Casual.
These are the type of women we love. And today, without us sharing here with us, you, Ben, historically are the first
They are gross.
time that the Quad has allowed a man to, to be the number 4 in
I'm
a
honored.
group of very...
Stop trying to make the Quad a thing, okay? You're a shitty fucking infomercial for genocide with absolutely charismaless presenters, just a bunch of sneering assholes.
Women like your mom.
I am
We take
honored.
inspiration from women like your mom.
Me
And we are
too.
very happy that she produced a son like you who in wartime comes in, flies in to stand with your people and make it as funny.
It's funny how they never mention, speaking of in wartime and all this, one of the things that also is an indication that this is not going the way Israel actually wanted it to. At this point, as John Elmer was pointing out in the video that Riveroon, if you're still there in chat, linked to in the Discord, Israel's buffer zones, both north and south, are for the first time in the history of the country inside Israel. Like literally, the populations in the north and the south have moved, and people who lived in the Gaza envelope are now refusing to go back as long as the resistance has any presence at all. So essentially, like, it is emptied out. It is literally just a military area now. That is the buffer zone. And all of this is what's going on, and why Israel's actually been, like, increasing the offers they send to Qatar to try to get to find some way to, like, get out of this with a scrap of, like, their dignity intact, they've been increasing. They started out with like a 2-week ceasefire. They tried to offer the resistance in Qatar, and the resistance said no, because at this point, the only thing that will be acceptable is a permanent ceasefire. Like 2 weeks, and then they're going to go back to like mass murdering people. There's just no reason that anyone should accept that. At this point, I mean, they've demonstrated what they're capable of. They've demonstrated their intent, and the only thing for it really comes down to making sure that they do not do it at all. But now they're up to a 2-month ceasefire. I mean, that has been going up. Yeah, I mean, it is like the whole dynamic on this show is just yuck. It is just like, it is like profound yuck. Every single bit of it. The snideness, the fact that she can go from talking about how horrible sexual assault is when it's fictional, to going, oh, did Moshe Dayan Me Too your mother? And that's a funny joke? I mean, there is just a level of vileness that is, like, painful, actually, to look at.
As this horrible situation can possibly be, but at the same time, really, having the moral clarity to fight the people who are against us. So
that isn't moral clarity. That is the absence of moral clarity.
Thank you so much, Bentley.
It is my pleasure, and I just wanted to thank you three for joining me as the fourth branch of your quad. And I'm so glad that things in Israel are finally evolving to a point where men are getting an opportunity.
Yes, right?
I really appreciate that.
Yes.
We've needed this for a long
The
time.
patriarchy is exhausting.
Yeah, give us
The matriarchy there, yeah. I mean, let's just remember, women can't get a divorce in Israel without their husband's permission. Like, you literally have to get a get, and it can be denied for no reason. Like, there is nothing that you can do to get a divorce from a guy who does not want you to leave him. Yeah, it's a new set, and it sucks worse.
shot. We're gonna prove you right.
Thank you.
God.
My pleasure.
I mean, these are the motherfuckers who killed Tasha Yar. This is like, the oil slick. The oil slick that killed Tasha Yar every couple of years gets to coalesce into, like, human form. And it does episodes of this fucking show. Oh god, that was rough. And now we're actually 10 minutes before the hour. We actually are gonna have to wrap it up fairly soon. But maybe we can get a little bit of something in there. What can we do? Maybe something short. There's got to be a short thing we can throw in. Okay, here's something that will suck, but is short. Another example of, like, the joys of attempted right-wing comedy. It's only 2 minutes, though, so we won't suffer long.
Hi there, I'm Brent Pella. And I'm JP.
I wonder if he's anything to do with the Windows. Is Pella Windows, is that a national thing, or is that just a thing here locally?
Series.
There's fucking Dr. Seuss character looking prick on the left. Fucking IP freely.
A lot of complaints recently about mansplaining, which is understandable
I love it. This is from, when was this?
because many people have a false understanding of what mansplaining is. You
3
see,
years
when
ago.
someone lacks the brain power to thoughtfully navigate their way through a subject or idea, they need it to be explained to them, preferably by a man. And when things are explained to them by a man,
Like, what? First of all, they're only just catching up on the mansplaining thing. That's been in the discourse. This is from 3 years ago. I remember that being in the discourse like 12 years ago, and they've only just sort of caught up to it.
oftentimes it'll have a negative connotation in their mind. Let me explain. You see, mansplaining is not a negative thing. It's just that we as men have a biological urge to help
I didn't want to hear about either of these guys' urges, actually.
propel the human race further, using our male wisdom and expertise. Mansplaining is about giving back to the community.
Like, okay, I have to say this is better. I will say just in terms of the lucidity and coherence of the writing, this is atypical of IP Freely's work. Usually his stuff has absolutely no narrative flow. It has just straight up hardcore narrative constipation.
I personally think it should be called man sharing. Let's take a look at this diagram to help explain further.
Like, I mean, what's the point of this? Who is this for?
We see here.
And why is this saying that this is HD when it's so fucking blurry that I could not actually make up the word water? Why does Pac-Man have legs?
Here, a man explaining to a woman that clouds are made of water. It's a fact that she would not
Like, I mean, what gets me about this is it's like, it almost seems like it's taking the piss out of guys who do this, except not really. I mean, that's the thing with this guy. There is, like, a lot of stuff where his angle is clear and it's horrible, and then there's other stuff where it is, like, sort of vague and just weird.
have this understanding unless this kind gentleman was explaining it to her.
I mean, okay, chat, would you say, is that Cookie Monster more, or is that Pac-Man? Or is that actually a frog sitting on the neck of a decapitated person?
In this case, mansplaining has become man-helping. Let's take a closer look at the woman's reaction. You can clearly see...
Yeah, exactly. This is another one where it's like, who is this for? I mean, who is this for? Who is this? Who's supposed to be laughing with this, and who is supposed to be being laughed at here? And I mean, if I did not have the background of this guy doing some serious, like, hardcore fashy shit, horrible shit, I would actually be almost inclined to think that this was taking the piss out of guys who do this. Except I know enough about this guy to know that that is almost certainly not what he's doing. But on the other hand, I also know he's a horrible gag writer. He does not know how to actually focus his gags, and so they always sort of fucking putter off like a farting balloon that was tied on improperly.
By her reaction that mansplaining has positively changed her life. You can see it in her eyes. These are her eyes.
They actually kind of look like boobs.
Now let's take a look at a real-life situation that many might say is unnecessary mansplaining. Hello. Hello, Sarah. How was your weekend?
It was so great. I had an opportunity to ride my bike.
You know, bicycles work best when you're pedaling forward. That way...
Like, okay.
The bicycle will move forward. And because you're sitting on it, your body also will be moving forward.
Like, okay, what, yeah, but what exactly? First of all, I'm really surprised that they know a woman with this haircut. Okay. I am, like, low-key shocked that they would know a woman whose hair looks like this. And I'm actually kind of wondering, does she not know, like, does she not know them? Was she delivering a fucking Deliveroo dinner to them, and they said, here, could you come and do a video for us real quick? And, except that sounds not creepy at all. Like, I don't understand any of this.
Brent's interruption is valid because Sarah said the word bike, and Brent knows a lot about bikes. I had one when I was 6. Sarah literally...
Like, okay, now it does begin to sound like they're taking the piss out of guys who do this. Which, like, I mean, it almost, I begin to think, because it's like, he has a ton of stuff that is fashy shit. This totally is off message with that. And I begin to think that this is just, like, grifting, and he does not actually give a shit one way or another. He just writes these, like, gags, and sometimes it's fast shit, and then sometimes it's this, and as long as he can hawk his fucking supplement bullshit, he doesn't care? I don't know. Chat, this is a mystery that I will leave to future generations to unravel.
Would not know what to do with herself had Brent not chimed in with key specifics to help shape her understanding of the world. Great job, friend.
Actually,
No, wait a second, okay. Like, this is what I'd been wondering.
that's...
Men.
Are you serious?
Men.
Like, okay. Like, this is, okay, this is, like, literally can't have been written by him. Because this is actually how you would end this gag. The only way that this gag actually is not, like, just shit is if it ends exactly the way this is working. And we know he's not that good a writer, even though it's not like this takes particular talent. This is just obviously how you'd have to do it if you're going to do it this way. But, like, what? I throw my hands up at the mystery of IP Freely and his weird, politically amorphous, almost comedy crap. And at that, it is 1 a.m., so it is time for me to wrap it up. I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I hope very much to see you then. Have a good night, and I look forward to seeing you.